In July of last year, The Boys showed up on our television screens and surprised us with a take on superheroes that both Marvel and DC have shied away from in recent years. Superpowered humans who do whatever they want regardless of the consequences? Who knew a concept revolving around the extermination of such characters would be such a hit? With an intense storyline backed up by incredible visuals, The Boys has reached an all-time high in popularity compared to HBO's other properties. But how did the production team bring us all that gore and wonder? Well, stay tuned as we take a look behind the curtains and explore some behind-the-scenes knowledge of The Boys. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. First, the concept that was too dark for television. The Boys slowly but surely became known as the type of show that doesn't pull any punches, with expletives placed in nearly every form of dialogue and adult themes being explored each and every episode. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the show was never meant for the eyes of children. Eric Kripke, the showrunner of The Boys, has always been a lover of dark and comedic television, once telling Collider on the topic of creating the show that, "I'm having a blast. It's so fun to not have restrictions on where you want a scene or joke to go. I have a filthy sense of humor and I've always had to restrain it for network television." But what if we told you that in trying to stay faithful to the graphic novel the show is based on, Kripke pitched an idea to Amazon which resulted in a resounding no? Considering the crazy things we've already seen from The Boys, this must have been a pretty dark and inappropriate idea. So what was it then? Well, apparently the production team went ahead and filmed a segment where Anthony Starr as Homelander flew to the top of the Chrysler building and took care of himself, so to speak, while watching the specks of humanity busy below. On talking about the only limitation the studio had placed on him, Kripke said, "Oh my gosh, Anthony was the best in that scene, but Amazon seemed to think it wasn't necessary. I thought it told me something about his psyche." Kripke luckily found a way for the audience to experience the creepiness of Homelander without this scene, but what a scene it would have been. Next, location is everything. Although set in New York, would you believe that The Boys was actually filmed in Toronto, Canada? Well, due to the presence of incredible set design and a visual effects department that had its fair share of talent working on the project, this is in fact what happened. Since the first season took around 5.5 months to film, starting essentially around May and ending in October, the cast was able to experience Toronto before the onset of its harsh winter, allowing for a real New York City feel. Chase Crawford, who plays the Deep, mentioned to Collider that the cast members of the show absolutely loved the location and had a lot of fun taking in all the incredible sights. Speaking of incredible sights, did you ever get the feeling of deja vu when watching The Boys? Well, that could have been due to a number of locations used throughout other film and series projects that had been reused by the show. One example of this is the incredible mansion of Jonah Vogelbaum that Homelander visits towards the end of Season 1. Believe it or not, this mansion is actually Parkwood Estate in Oshawa, which was used as Adam Sandler's estate in Billy Madison, a real classic to be remembered. Another example of familiarity is the monstrous building used as Vaux headquarters in the show, which is, in actual fact, the Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto's entertainment district. You'd be forgiven if you didn't recognize the famous landmark straight away, though, as the VFX department used the building as the base of Vaux headquarters, digitally extending it upwards a few hundred feet to make it appear unrecognizable. Even that first episode in Season 1, where Huey and Billy walk through Times Square, was a lie. In actual fact, the two were walking through Yonge Dundas Square, which had been digitally altered to appear similar to that American landmark. Considering that fans throughout the world had been fooled into thinking that The Boys had actually been shot in New York, the VFX department deserves all the praise they can get. Now that's how you get the perfect location. Let's talk about superheroes and their supersuits. As lovers of the superhero genre will tell you, behind every superhero is a supersuit. And you'd be surprised by how much the success of a superhero franchise banks on how the superhero actually looks. Need any proof of this statement? Take a look at Ryan Reynolds as the Green Lantern and you'll need absolutely no more convincing. When it came to the Seven, each superhero's outfit was carefully planned and executed by a talented seamstress who ensured that the team of Vaux superheroes actually looked the part. There's nothing less intimidating than a man in spandex after all, so without this grungy look, the series could have really taken a turn for the worst. Homelander's outfit, for example, is laced with an undercoating of soft rubber muscles that ensure he is always looking as threatening as possible, while A-Train's suit has been fitted with rubberized mesh on the outside of his legs to help cut through the air and reduce drag when he is using super speed. As far as Black Noir goes, the costume department really had to play with the idea of putting knives in strategic places while uplifting his physicality and stealthy presence as much as possible. Fans of the comics would have noticed that the Deep looks completely different from his counterpart in the graphic novel. But who wants to see Chase Crawford in a large metal helmet? You can't cover up that moneymaker, right? All in all, well done to the costume department for bringing us a version of the Seven worth celebrating. Next, we have the man behind the special effects. One of the reasons for the massive amount of popularity obtained by The Boys was its ability to make the viewer feel as if the action, gore, and horror of the show were in fact real components being shot in real time. When it comes to the superhero genre, your show is going to be compared to both Marvel and DC powerhouses after all, who not only work with the greatest in visual effects, but have a budget almost triple of yours. In other words, you simply can't skimp out on having great visual effects. In fact, Kripke has said that it was really important for us to have an incredibly high level of visual effects. I think at one point we had over 20 VFX houses doing 20 to 30 revisions of almost every shot. I think there's 1,800 to 1,900 shots in the first 8 episodes. That is an insane amount of work and money to put into the first season of any property, regardless of how popular you think it might become. All special effects, ranging from the glow of Starlight's eyes to the invisibility of Translucent, were overseen by the effects supervisor, Stephen Fleet, who was responsible for not only managing all VFX departments, but ensuring that nothing was missed along the way. In an interview, Fleet informed viewers, a lot of the discussions were about how we were going to interpret the comic book for a different medium, and through that came the decision to reduce some of the blood and gore. For a show that is renowned for having a built reputation on both blood and gore, this is beyond surprising to hear. Then there's being covered in blood. Whether it was after the A-Train accident or blowing Translucent to Kingdom Come, Huey Campbell had a knack for being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being covered in blood as a result. In fact, on the topic of being covered in fake blood, Jack Quaid, who portrays the popular character of Huey, said at the Fan Expo in Canada that it sticks to your skin and your clothes, and it's fun. It's a good time. Head and Shoulder Shampoo, shout out to them. They really helped get it out. It's good to know that as hugely dependent as The Boys was on its VFX department, it still stuck with practical effects throughout, especially with how blood splatter and the like was concerned. Speaking of practical effects, this reminds us of the A-Train accident once more. What about Robin's hands? Episode 1 of the first season is known for its introduction of Huey as a loving boyfriend who cares deeply for the love of his life, Robin. While out and about on the streets of New York, however, the speed demon, A-Train, collides with Robin, causing her body to explode into bits and pieces, some of which splatter across Huey's face in slow motion. This causes Huey to look down in surprise, only to see that he is still holding Robin's hands, which are all that remain of her. It's the start of a revenge arc that simply cannot be forgotten, a scene that sticks in your head because of the perfect mixture of both visual and practical effects. The splattering of blood, for example, went both ways. In the practical sense, Jack was actually splattered with fake blood to get the true reaction we see in the scene. In the virtual sense, the VFX department was responsible for making use of its toolbox to virtually render blood splatter following A-Train as he ran through Robin, and causing that splatter to drop quickly to the floor as soon as time went back to normal. Fans will also be surprised to hear that Robin's hands, which formed a huge part of this scene, were actually real props created by the props department. At the same Fan Expo, Jack Quaid actually said, "I got to say our effects team has been so good. They've tried their best to make a lot of stuff very practical. When I'm holding Robin's hands, they felt really, really real." Next up, Kripke and his old school take on filming. The meshing of both practical and visual effects culminates in Kripke's vision of doing something practically if it can be done, and if not, only then resorting to visual effects. This old school style of filming has resulted in The Boys coming off looking fresh and new, essentially giving audiences a new take on the trusted superhero formula. So, thank you Kripke for taking such a risk. Anyway, that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching.